My daughter is currently a yellow belt. She's been training since the fall of 2014 or so. So she's been trained for a couple years.
So how old is she now?
She's 11 now, going on 12.
Okay, so and that means she started 6?
6 or yeah, about 6
so
years.
Young.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I wasn't there. Well, no, I was there when Zeta first started, but my son, the older one, he started about 2 years prior to that when he was about 10 years old or 11. But jiu-jitsu, my husband has always been, into it and knew more about it than I did. So he's the one that kind of got the kids going into it. I was deployed at the time, so I had no idea. I came back and they were already in it, or Damien was. But I'm not sure. It became popular.
Okay.
It's a gritty sport. It's something that you'll see or you read about or you'll watch about, that it's good to know how to handle yourself and defend yourself. So why not? Yeah.
What about you, Dave?
Okay. Xander, 5 years old, started jiu-jitsu at 2 years and 8 months.
Snuck him into the program.
Yep. I mean, I do have to claim that Xander went to Crazy88 before he went home from the hospital.
That is true.
We stopped by the school with Ghost and also brought Xander in, laid him on the mats, and the Crazy88 is much more to us than a simple place to do jiu-jitsu. It's our family. I mean, most of our friends train. Most of our spare time is spent at Crazy88, so it was a great point of pride to bring our child, who was brought into the world while we were both heavily involved in the school, to meet our friends. But there was some intrinsic value in our mind to bringing him to the school. Zoe, same deal. I think she started a little bit later, just because she's a little bit more timid by nature than Xander is. I have to admit, I'm not even 100% sure what belt Xander is. To me, they're no belts. That's just how it works to me. I view their jiu-jitsu much differently than most of the people that I've talked to at the school. Mm-hmm. So I can talk about that now, or I can wait until there's a question.
Talk about it.
So my opinions on jiu-jitsu come from both personally doing jiu-jitsu and doing lots of other sports, and also teaching jiu-jitsu. Okay. I have no experience in teaching children. Before I had children, I'd never even held a child. I'm very bad. I'm the youngest in my family, so I'm typically very bad with children. Mm-hmm. Of course, now that I have them, I'm much more in tune with them, I understand them, and I study kids. But there are adults, grown men and women, that I have seen unable to do an arm bar or an arm lock, unable to do a rear naked choke, just unable to get their bodies, to understand their bodies enough to do that. So I'm keenly aware that teaching a child that's 2.5 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, that's probably the limit of my experience, because my own child is at that age, is very, very hard to get them to technically do it right. So of course I believe that has to be completely outsourced to the professionals that have dedicated their lives to doing that. Keith, Vanessa, and any of the other assistants. So I don't step on those toes at all in my own personal involvement. That's why I don't even know what belt Xander is. But what I want him to learn is to be comfortable in close proximity to other people, to not shy away from physical interactions, to have camaraderie, to overcome fear associated with how scary it may be to compete. I'm not even sure he's jumped over that hurdle yet. He's definitely scared to compete. I want him to learn how to take instruction. I want him to learn how to be a gentleman when he loses. These are the types of things that I think are critically important for children to learn. Mm-hmm. And I think jiu-jitsu and the program at 88 is specifically tailored towards that. That is where my interests lie. I want my kids to be well-rounded people. I have Xander in other sports, and I don't necessarily care about the direct result of those sports. I care about all the extraneous things. And I do believe that if Xander stays on the mats from 2 years and 8 months until he's 18, he will be phenomenal. You have to be. Anybody that's in an environment in any particular environment, just absorbing things will become kind of good, I think. And I believe that a lot of parents are misdirecting. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. I'm not even directing this at anybody in particular. Just in as a whole, when I watch parents deal with their children in sport, I always see them focused on, maybe yelling at them because they're not doing a technique perfectly. But in reality, all the other things they're doing at that moment are way more important than the technique. They're in the middle of a physical confrontation at a very young age, doing things that most adults can't do. So, that's really why I'm not involved in directly. I always want to know, does he ever cry on the mat? Does he ever get scared and walk away? Those are the types of things I don't want him to do. I could not care less if he's unable yet to do a perfect technical arm lock. Hopefully he will, but that's not where my interests lie. And same with Zoe, except Zoe is much more timid, so getting her to do things has been much more of a challenge, which is why the program is super important. Xander will charge right into something. He's been overly aggressive at times, which I do like. I have to admit, when I get a complaint that my child is overly aggressive, in a way, I don't view it as a complaint. I'm like secretly like, yeah, cool,
Right.
But Zoe, she's scared. So watching the teammates push her through that is huge for me, and I don't know where else she would learn.
In your experience, was there a difference between having your son and your daughter in jiu-jitsu, similar to what he said? Did you notice any differences?
As far as
aggressiveness or how they took to jiu-jitsu?
yeah, Damien's definitely more aggressive. I don't know if that's a boy or a girl thing, because Zeta's not as aggressive as he is.
Could be.
But she's more into it currently than he was. But she's built a lot of friends at Crazy88 too. That's another aspect, and she likes that. That's her second home. I mean, like Dave said, we're there at 88 more than any other day of the week, and we want to be there. That's the thing. But as far as being aggressive, she has her moments, but she didn't want to go on the mats at all. She didn't want to train. I had to bribe her to take her first class, and then right after her first class, I remember recording it. She came off. I was like, "Well, what do you think?" And I hadn't even started training it because I was just one of the parents on the side watching. I had no idea what was going on. She came off the mats and she's like, "Can I do this forever?" I have that video. I always share it every time it comes up on Facebook. But but that's just that instant feeling that it gave her. I knew something was there. So if I just got to be able to take her as often as she wants.
So what made you get started in training? Because you started your children first, so what? So at the time, I've always been an active person. I mean, I'm in the military. That's just my nature. So I was in CrossFit at the time, and I'd always do a lot of competitions, and my husband deployed, and he would be always the one tasked to take my son to jiu-jitsu. But since he was gone, I was like, and Damien still wanted to train. He was like probably the second year into it. I was like, okay, if you want to go, then I guess I got to take you. I'm the only one that could take you. Right.
So I started taking him, and then the coaches, they were always nagging on me like, "Oh, Miss CrossFit's here." They're always teasing me. They're like, "You need to come on the mats." I'm like, "No, I'm good." And then they said, "Well, let's get Zeta because she's always on the side watching her iPad." I had to bribe her with like some Barbie doll or something at the time she was into. I said, if you go on the mats, I'll get you this new doll or whatever. So that's what kind of got her on there. She did her first class with Damien helping her out, so that was big for her. And then she came off the mat and she loved it. I just started it just because I was peer pressured from the other parents and the coaches that were there. And then once I started it, like I never stepped a foot into another CrossFit gym again.
So you liked it right away?
Yes, yep, it was for me. And I had tried. I had done combatives, Army combatives in like 2010, and it's like a 2-week course, a 40-hour thing.
Right.
And I was like, man, this is cool stuff. Like I don't understand what a guard is. I don't know what passing a guard is.
Right.
They were throwing all these words at us, and then we had to get at the end of the course, you had to show what you learned or whatever. I didn't learn crap. I just thought it was the coolest thing because we were pretty much wrestling, something I was unfamiliar with. And that was only a 2-week thing. I wanted to go back and try it again, but I didn't have the chance or opportunity. I got busy with work, and then I came back. I want to say in 2014 from a deployment when Damien was starting it. And then Zeta started it, so I was like, then I started it, and I was hooked since then.
So you put them in as the guinea pigs first. And
yeah. Well, yeah. My husband was more into it than I was at the time. But then that's the thing, like, he doesn't train. Mm-hmm. He's been surrounded by it and watches and stuff, but even so, he understands that there's a grit to it and there's sweat out there and you're putting things on the mat that you're not going to experience anywhere else. So he's able to separate himself from, trying to be that involved in a particular match, I guess, when the kids are fighting, or not fighting, but sparring or something. He doesn't get caught up in the moment. He's just like, oh, the kids are training, and he doesn't even stick around and watch, because he knows that the kids are going to learn eventually, and they're going to have to learn the hard way.
Do you stay and watch your kids when they are training? Rarely. Why not?
Because I don't feel like I need to. Like, I pay money to Crazy88 because I want my kids to train and learn from the coaches who have that experience training kids and working with the kids. I don't. I know what I'm capable of doing, but I just don't. I don't have that understanding of what kids are truly capable of, even my own kid. So I don't need to watch them. I don't need to be that involved, I guess. If there's a competition coming up and she wants to compete or Damien wants to compete, I support it, and I just make sure they get to training, because when they get into competition, they're not going to be listening to me on the side of the mat. They're going to be listening to what the coach is telling them, and their teammates are screaming and helping them or supporting them during the match. So they don't need to hear or see me on the side of the mats during training, because they need to be listening to the coaches.
And you already said that you don't feel.
No, and she hit it right on the head. I couldn't have said it better. That, I mean, there's two reasons. One is selfish, and I'm just a busy guy. My kids are doing something and they're well taken care of. I would typically take that opportunity to catch a breather, read some emails, catch up with my friends. I'm at the school, hanging out with my buddies. But also, I have watched them only a few times, and I am very aware that I don't know what I am looking at. I'm looking at a jiu-jitsu match with an expectation of adult jiu-jitsu, and I am very aware that that's not necessarily fair. And if I were to put upon Xander the expectations that we have in adult, a 40-year-old man, brown belt jiu-jitsu match, that would be so unfair. Mm-hmm. So I try to remind myself, A, I'm biased because it's my own child, so I want him to succeed, and I would be harder on him than I would be on a stranger. B, I am also, as I said, aware that I am responsible a couple times a week for teaching adults that have fully developed bodies how to do jiu-jitsu, and many of them cannot do what some of these kids are doing. I understand it's hard to teach people jiu-jitsu. So I try to stay away from it just because I know that all I would do is put a monkey wrench into people who understand what exactly they're trying to achieve in a kid jiu-jitsu match by me suggesting that they do something different. Like, what benefit would I have in yelling out to Xander, go for his leg, go for his leg? I've heard parents instructing their children to do certain things that I know technically, even in an adult match, is not right.
Okay.
For sure. I know I am a coach in jiu-jitsu, so I'm thinking, A, what you're saying is not right, even if these people were totally capable of doing what you're suggesting, and they're kids. So they're not going to be able to do what you're suggesting that they do anyway. So that's why I don't watch it, because what I'm really there for, as long as my son's out there giving it his all, whether he's losing and handling it well, or winning and handling that well, being mature about winning a match, I'm getting all that I want out of jiu-jitsu. When he's 18, I'll watch.
Do you want to watch, or do you not feel? Do you feel that it's harmful for you to watch, or is it just that you don't really feel interested in watching, or what's?
I wanna. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better to me as a parent than to see my child doing something that I also love, and I'm proud that he's doing it in the environment that he's doing it. I love 88. I want him to be in there. It probably bounces back more to the fact that I know that I'm not adding any net positive to me watching. It's only an opportunity for me to have a net negative effect by stressing him out. I can see that he's looking at me when I'm there, and it's pulling him out of his little zone. He won't react the same as if I'm watching him than he would be if he was all by himself. And that I do like to take advantage of the opportunities when my child is well taken care of, people that I trust to take care of my own things.
What about you, Mr. Like, do you want to watch Zeta and you just stop yourself, or do you just not feel that you
no, I honestly don't care to watch her, because I feel like just the time spent on the mats, she's going to eventually learn things, and she's going to execute what she's trained to do. So that's, her journey's different than my journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly don't care to watch. I'll peek in and I'll watch some of the matches, but I like watching the other kids too and seeing how they're developed. But like Dave said, there's other things going on in the gym. There's a boot camp class I always like to do at the same time as a kids class, or something else going on. I was in school, so I was always studying on the side. Just different things are going on versus having to watch my kid train.
So,
just if I can add, there's another maybe hack that we both have, and that's that I know their coaches well.
Yeah.
I know Keith. I've known Keith for over a decade.
Right.
I inherently trust him, period.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Vanessa.
Mm-hmm.
And same with anyone that you, as the owner of the academy, put in charge of that class. I believe that my child is in good hands.
Yeah.
There is a time when they're at swimming, because I don't know anybody. I walk into the swim school, I don't know anyone. I don't even know where I am. I will watch, because I'm worried about who are these people.
You're going to jump into the water if something goes down.
Well,
right?
I just don't know who.
That's crazy.
Yeah, first of all, it's deadly. If something goes wrong, they could sink. And also, I don't know these people. So, yeah, I watch more carefully. Now, at soccer that he does, or breakdancing, I don't watch at all, because what can go wrong in soccer?
Yeah.
He doesn't like it, or he kicks the ball wrong. But swimming is deadly. Mm-hmm. So I'm in there like a hawk watching him. Now that I'm aware of it, I look at my phone. But what I'm saying is, I know their coaches, and I am totally comfortable with them. If they needed to babysit them, I would be happy to have them care for my child, and I wouldn't need to watch. I would have no hesitation. So why would I, again, interrupt their jiu-jitsu by watching? The second I walk into the classroom, I can see Xander looks over at me.
Yeah.
Zoe does the same thing. Sometimes they'll even run over to me and give me a hug. They haven't seen me all day. And it screws them up. So I stay away from it.
Do you feel that what do you notice when you compare jiu-jitsu to other youth sports that your children have been involved in? How do you compare,
What I find is different is that it's an individual sport.
Okay.
Granted, you have your coach and you have your team that you train with that helped you develop you to get to where you're at in a particular competition. But you're out there on the mat with that one other person. There's nobody to kick a ball to. You're on your own, to figure out the moves yourself. Obviously, with any other sport, you have plays. You're kicking the ball to a particular person or to position. Basketball the same way. I grew up playing basketball, volleyball, soccer. My husband the same thing, and so jiu-jitsu was just a whole different world for us. And you can say it is the same thing because you're still challenging yourself. The kids are out there challenging themselves and putting themselves or testing their skills in that competitive format. So there's some similarities, but I think there's more differences than anything.
Do you think, as a parent, do you feel different putting your child into jiu-jitsu or like watching your child? Because what other sports have Zeta and Damien been part of?
Soccer.
Just soccer.
Soccer. Damien did basketball for a short stint. He tried football. Wasn't for him, but as soon as we put him on the mats, he was all into it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think wrestling and jiu-jitsu are very similar,
yes.
but in the team sports, did you feel different, like as a parent, or?
I do.
I feel like I don't know. It's a different animal with the team sports.
Okay.
Definitely. I feel like there's more parents out there that are screaming at the kids on the field than
In a team sport.
In the team sports.
Okay.
Than out, in an enclosed environment inside a gym.
What about you?
Interesting. All right. Well, there's a couple of different things. First off, I think that two people fighting each other, because that's really what they're doing. You can't hide behind anything. Your skill set is readily apparent immediately, whether you're an adult or a child. What you're capable of doing is very clear. Also, I think that because it's a fight and there's a decisive winner or loser almost every time, it gets people riled up. It has the ability to cause a parent watching their number one asset get physically beat. It's emotional. It really is. I can remember when Kathy, my wife, somebody I deeply care about, love, had her first jiu-jitsu match. It's like legendary. Screaming.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Screaming.
Nika,
screaming.
Nika, Nika, Nika.
Yeah, it's so stupid. But I was really stressed. I was really stressed out by it because I wanted her to win. I didn't want her to experience defeat. I wanted her to win so that she would feel good about it and want to continue. That's true of jiu-jitsu too. I see that Xander likes jiu-jitsu more when he wins. So I want him to win for that reason. I don't want him to experience the emotional side effects of defeat at the hands of another guy or boy. He talks about it when he loses. He also talks about it when he wins. But all that interplay is important. When I lost my train of thought, why is it different? In team sports, there's just a bunch of people out on the field doing stuff. And because there's a bunch of people on a field doing stuff, there can be individual people yelling about random things and no one really understands what they're yelling about.
Okay.
There's a parent screaming like, Billy, get the ball, and there's just all this chaos and screaming. But if you're in jiu-jitsu, you're clearly screaming at only one person. And then the person that you're screaming about, your own child, has parents also. And they're watching someone scream at their child about beating up their child, so it causes the other parent, to get emotional.
Right, so it's sort of like a feedback effect, right? Like the one, if the parents hear one parent coaching, then they want to get involved. And you're just putting the kids into this.
Yeah, rather than there's two teams where there's people in bleachers and everyone's just blah, 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 blah. It's team. I'm not really that into team sports, but it's so different when someone's saying, go for their neck. You're talking about a child.
Right, like hey, choke that other kid out.
Simulate murder.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Simulate murder. That's what you're saying,
right.
Really. I mean, that's really what we're doing. We're simulating a murder scene against children.
Right.
Break his leg. That's what you're trying to say in code language.
Right.
Knee cut means get past the person's guard so that you can mount them and choke them.
Right.
So it's emotional. And the other parent steps in like, why are you coaching my son in class, by the way? We're all the same team. It's goofy. When we have adult match of the day, we do cheer for somebody sometimes as a joke, but we're not really encouraging our own teammates to mercilessly beat up anyone. That's different. It's different, right? It's very different to coach your child against another child in the room simulating murder rather than coaching your child on a team trying to get a ball in net or simulating.
I think that's an important point because it raises the stakes, like what you're saying about raising the stakes, because in a team sport, the team could lose, but you could win. Like you might be like, you might have thrown, like you might have the best performance of your career as a quarterback and still lose.
Oh yeah.
Right? And then you're like, I won, but I don't know what these other guys are doing. But in a one-on-one sport,
there's no hiding.
There's no hiding. Yeah,
there's no hiding. That's the beauty. That's why we love jiu-jitsu, right?
So how do you deal with that as a parent, right? Like you're saying that
I stay completely out of it
because you do feel that you feel like you're sort of going to get brought into some sort of like rivalry or something.
I would never. because I want Xander to get beat up just as much as I want him to succeed. I am keenly aware, because of my experience in jiu-jitsu, that he is not going to actually die at the hands of any child. No 5-year-old can employ any move that is going to really hurt my kid.
Right.
I beat on him all the time. The types of things I do to him are way worse than any 5-year-old's ever going to do. Mm-hmm. No matter what they're doing, they're still 5-year-old little tiny bodies. They can't hurt each other. They can't. But really, it echoes back to the fact that when I'm in my happy place, so when Xander's doing jiu-jitsu, I'm out there in the lobby politicking and chilling with my boys. That's what it's about. But sometimes I walk into the room and I've seen parents, like I said, yelling at their kids to better simulate murder on another kid who happens to be their teammate wrongly.
Well, with the parent right there, too.
With the other parent right there. I'm like, oh,
that's not awkward.
This is super weird. You know?
Yeah.
A, it's bad instruction. B, it's a kid. C, the other parent is right there, and they're trying to read their email, read the John Grisham book, and now someone's yelling to kill their child. It's emotional.
So what is the benefit of losing? Because you said that you want him to lose it just as much as he wins. So how do you categorize that?
I really like when Xander catches a beating, and I like it because it is very counterintuitive to maturely handle a beating by another person. Especially, you can see it's in their DNA to not want to be physically beat. Different than if you're a goalie and the ball gets past you. Because it's a ball that was the thing that won. In jiu-jitsu, it is a human being handling another human being. Arguably the best feeling in the world. Mm-hmm. To hold down a man and look in his eyes and know he can't move.
You can't look in his eyes.
And choke. And choke. It is weird. It is weird. It's very weird. But when you're inside now and you have a bread cutter on someone and you see them and they're looking and you see them and you see them like break, it's the greatest. Conversely, it's the worst.
Right.
So the day that Xander gets passed and someone gets inside him, boom, and then he gets up and he shakes their hand like a man, I'll be really proud of him because that's what we're doing. Mm-hmm. That's what I want. It doesn't happen. I hope it happens, but I've seen a lot of kids when they lose, they start getting choked up. They get tears in their eyes and they're taking it really personally. And I think that's what they should learn young, is that the best way to learn is to get choked, to figure out what happened, and reverse engineer it. Mm-hmm. And there would be no benefit to me yelling at Xander while he's in the bottom of the side now, getting choked, to get out. He knows he needs to get out. He just doesn't know how.
That's like, you can hear that in adult movies too, right? You're like, get out of there! Get out of there! And you're like, I know I'm supposed to get out of here. It's horrible down here.
Yeah, so now Dad, the person that I hope Xander idolizes, and I still truly believe he does idolize me, at least at this point in his life. He loves me very much. He doesn't want me to feel disappointed. So there's even been times when I've seen him on the wrong side of something in jiu-jitsu, and I was in the room, and I'll just walk right out. That way, he doesn't have to deal with the ramifications of the person he cares about most seeing it.
Right.
I remember that as a kid, being super stressed when people would watch me. I was in, Xander's in breakdancing. When he had his breakdancing show, we all went. He was like, where? Whoa, you guys are watching me? I'm on stage, you're watching me? It was stressful for him. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when you watch your kid in class.
So how do you categorize? How do you deal with that? Like, because you've had Zeta and Damien not only in class, but also travel and compete, and you went with them. I mean, that's got to be a tough situation.
Yeah, and they see the investment that we make into it. Okay. So being that it's an investment for the travel to compete, paying for all the hotels and the travel and all that, and to go out there and they lose, it hurts. You are your worst critic, so they're going to naturally be that way. They're going to beat themselves up internally, however they handle it. So when they go out and they lose that, I would hope that when they come back, they want to work through things, or they want to work it out to know or to do something so that they're not in that position again, or not caught up in that position again. So if they're out there, losing in training or whatnot, they're working on those moves that are going to keep them or preventing them from getting in that same position that they got stuck on. Because when we invested all that money and time to go travel somewhere and then they lose, they're going to know that when we do it again, because they're going to want to do it again, and we're just there to support it, and they're going to go out there and they're going to win. And it's a better feeling for that comeback.
So I like that you brought up winning, and I know that your children haven't. I mean, they've done some in-house tournaments, right? But they haven't really competed yet.
Yeah, I mean, they're so young.
Right.
The competition was almost...
They didn't know what's going on.
They don't know what's going on. They walk up to each other, and they sort of grab each other, and then one falls down on the ground.
And they actually don't know who wins or loses until the ref raises
the
the
scoring
hand.
is it just so happens that they moved in a way that they had 2 points, and they won the match by way of...
Yeah, they look shocked, like when when they're at that age and the one ref raises the other kid's hand, they're like, what? And then when they win too, they're like, what? Oh,
right.
Xander's
got somebody on his back.
Cute. Yeah.
He looks up, he's smiling. I'm like,
he's not good. He's laughing.
It's bad. If you were a man, that would hurt, That brings up another good thing that's worth talking about. I don't know if it's relevant for this interview, but aggressiveness is a challenge because you want to teach your child to be aggressive. And I definitely have talked to Xander about that. I really believe, I look at your kids are an inspiration to me and my kids. And like Bubba, super aggressive. When I see him go out there, he looks like he knows what he's doing. He sets up and he's like, oh, I want Xander to be like that. I always tell him that. But then there's a complaint if your child gets too aggressive.
Right.
It's even happened. How do you pulling a child over their ankles is something that happens even to adults. They get aggressive, they get crazy, and you pull somebody over their ankles. It's really hard to teach a child to be aggressive, but then not to be overly aggressive. And that's been something that I don't know. I don't know how to answer that one.
But isn't that balance a skill that isn't that a skill that you want them to develop into adulthood, which is sort of like, what is that right balance of like being proactive, being aggressive, like taking like a don't F with me stance, but keeping it in a healthy way, right? Because you don't want, as an adult, you don't want to be a pushover, but you also don't want to be like a total asshole, right? So isn't that part of learning how to...
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a good problem that your child has reached the level of aggressiveness that it could be too aggressive. So it's easier to teach somebody to dial it back than to not have it at all. But that's another interesting dynamic with parents, is that other parents have to understand that we're all in this give and take together with our children. They're doing a physical sport, and every now and then there could be an injury, or there could be somebody that steps over the line. It's nothing personal. It's kids learning something collectively, and unfortunately we have to learn it with other people. Mm-hmm. We have to learn it with another human being. So just as much as Xander, I know at one point got overly aggressive and pulled somebody over their ankles, I'm sure that's going to happen to him at some point. I'm sure it already has. And no one, as long as, hopefully nobody really gets hurt, it's not intentional, we all have to, as parents, understand it's kind of what we signed up for.
It's like getting fouled, right? Like if you play a sport and you get fouled, you're like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've seen video, YouTube, where some parent runs on the field and starts fighting everybody. But that's something you also don't want to do in jiu-jitsu, because half the parents are brown belts in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like,
exactly. You don't know who you're running up to.
Okay. Now it's an adult jiu-jitsu.
So you guys talked about how you categorize losing for your child. How do you categorize winning? Like, what's the importance of winning for your child?
I mean, for me, it's just that winning feels great, and it's the culmination of their hard work is to win, I think. So whenever he wins, I always try to use it as a teaching moment to make sure that he was humble in that atmosphere. Mm-hmm. He always tells me, he comes home a lot in jiu-jitsu and I'm not there, and tells me, I won, Daddy, and he tells me the person's name and everything and what happened. And I'm always like, that's not nice, buddy. That's your teammate. Mm-hmm. Make sure that I asked him, how old were they? Just make sure it was fair.
Right.
And then if he actually won, and I said, good job, man, good job. But remember, it's your teammate. Mm-hmm. And that's how I feel about it.
So how do you categorize it? Because I mean, Zeta recently won the Pan Kids, right? And you know, you yourself, you know, Masters World Champion. So how would you categorize? I'm curious. How would you categorize winning for yourself versus how do you categorize winning for your child? You know, like, are they? Do you feel like they're different or?
Winning for me is it just solidifies, you know, my hard work and my investment into the sport. For Zeta, what I feel winning is this in the same aspect, but she's there with her team too. She won with, you know, several other of her teammates, so that was extra special for her. And she won, and it makes the coaches happy. You know, they're very proud. Vanessa's very proud of her. So me seeing that makes me feel good about the whole situation. And of course, everybody wants to win, or every kid wants to win. She's had more losses than wins. She lost 3 times before at Pan Kids before she can get this 4th time she's gone to win. So it's kind of it's worth it in the end, you know, to go off all these losses and then to go back on there and take the gold in that one particular competition. It was the biggest competition, Pan Kids, so, and she knows that. She talks about it all the time, you know. That's the biggest thing that she wanted. She's a champion. So she's champion. Yeah, she is. And she you know, rub it in her brother's face sometimes, and it's funny. But for her, I think she handles it. She handles it pretty well. She knows it's a rougher road now that she's a yellow belt, because those yellow belt kids, they are no joke. They do things that I can't imagine a body can do. You know, going up higher, yellow, orange, and green. So it's just kind of, I don't know.
So do you feel that? Would you say that there was a difference in how Zeta views jiu-jitsu from before she won the Pan Kids to after?
She had gone through a stage, especially when we moved out here and she started at Crazy88. She wasn't as motivated as she had gotten, but we kept making her go because she has to do something, you know. She started making friends, and I think it was about a year into it that she started getting comfortable and opening up, and then getting into the competition scene out here. I forgot what I was going to say. What was the question?
So I was going to say, like,
she has a difference between when she won and before she.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. So before she started
before the
competing,
Pan Kids.
Oh, what was her perception of everything?
No, like, do you feel like she made like some sort of character shift, or did she change, or do you feel like no, she was sort of the same before and after? She
was the same. I think she got more aggressive the longer she kept trying to compete. She definitely got more aggressive. I remember Josh coming home. This is back in January, a month before Pan Kids, and Josh hadn't been to the gym in a while. He didn't watch Zeta train a lot because he was busy with work or whatever. And then he came home. He was like, "Holy crap, Zeta's gotten so much better." You know, like she had a significant jump from the year prior, or from the last time he had watched her, which was probably like 6 months ago. From that point, so he was, you know, for him to say something like that was. I was thinking, I'm like, oh, she must be doing something right. Something triggered in her, or something's happening that she sees the light, if you will.
I wanted to touch on something that you said about Zeta. You were saying that she lost her motivation before she won the Pan Kids.
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit about like the ups and the downs in the motivation and keeping the children, you know, why you kept your children involved? Because one thing we do, you know, you do see a lot of parents are like, oh, they are not interested anymore, and then they pull the kid out. Like, what would you recommend to a parent who's trying to make that decision? Like, do you pull the kid out, or do you keep them in, right? That's like a big parenting issue, right? How did you make that decision in between how you advised your child?
It was easy for us because I train and I love it. I want to be on the mats every single day. Naturally, I can't do that. It was, you want your kid to do something, whether it's a sport, jiu-jitsu, this being it. We kind of forced it on her, but we cut it back. Mm-hmm. And we like I said, we invested into this thing. Damien was already committed into it, in addition to his wrestling thing. So it was more of like, if I'm going to be there, you should be there too, training. Maybe that's not a good concept, but she had to do something. She didn't want to play any of the sports when we moved out here. She didn't want to try anything different. So we made her go like once a week, if that, when she didn't want to go. She used to complain, I don't want to go today. I'm like, get your stuff, we're going to go.
I remember that time.
Yeah.
But, so you kept her in it, but you dialed her back from every day to once a day.
Week.
Okay.
Or once a week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I would tell her, okay, train hard this week, and then next week we won't go.
Okay.
So it would be like an alternate, on and off thing. 1 week on, 1 week off. And that was enough for her to, I guess, get back into it. Because we didn't pressure her into it as much. But then when competition comes, she wants to do competitions. We're like, well, if you're not training, how are you going to compete? Mm-hmm.
You're giving her a certain element of control, which I think is really important, right? Like, you make them feel like they're in control of their own progress. So you're like, hey, you want to take a step back? No problem. Let's take a step back. That's what you want to do. And then when she wants to come back, but she wants to compete, and you just say, hey, if you want to compete, this is the cost of competing. You can't compete and do once a week. And then she made that choice. Mm-hmm. And if I remember, she lost her motivation the year before the Pan Kids, right? And then she slowly brought herself back in to her best year ever, and made a jump during that period.
Yes. Yeah.
So for your children who are younger, how do you deal with that?
One thing that's important, they'll maybe see this someday, but we have deceived them in that they don't know yet that there are people that don't do jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
They think all people do jiu-jitsu. And that's because everyone they know does jiu-jitsu, even their grandparents.
Okay.
Mr. Tran.
Oh yeah, that's true. Mr. Tran does.
Every single person that they know does jiu-jitsu. In fact, there's been a little issue recently. Xander pulled me aside and said, Pop is not a man. And I said, what? It's my dad and my father. I was like, I know that, but what do you mean? I was like shocked by it. He goes, he doesn't do jiu-jitsu. And he confronted my dad about it. He said, Pop, why don't you do jiu-jitsu? And he was like, well, he said, I'm old. And they were like, they said, you're not a man, you're not a man. And they started saying, you're not a man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was rough.
That's some tough love.
Yeah, Zoe and Xander started chanting, you're not a man, to my dad. Recently, it's happened. And I made up something. I pulled him aside. I was like, look, he's old, he's an old man. At a certain time, your body starts breaking down. He used to do jiu-jitsu. He was fine. I made up something. And then he's been saying lately, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. He's been telling me, so we'll see. My old father, who's 75, does jiu-jitsu.
That would be a new record.
That would be insane.
How Mr. Tran is what, 60?
Yeah, my dad's 75 and had quadruple bypass surgery. He's very frail.
Wow.
Yeah, many years ago. So he says he's going to do jiu-jitsu. He may have to come in and put on a gi just so that he can die. Now,
get
in
that
peace. Yeah. So how have I dealt with it? My children have never competed for real. They've done in-house stuff, and it's like I said, it was real controlled, and it was almost like a fun thing. But my theory on this is that I spend a lot of time trying to figure my kids out because I'm trying to be a good dad, I'm trying to be a good parent. And I know that children have no control over anything except for one thing, and that's their ability to say they don't want to do something that they know their parents want them to do. Take a bath. It's like they no. They don't want to get clean all of a sudden. Eat breakfast. No. Change your clothes. No. Do jiu-jitsu. No. So I noticed that when they don't want to do something, if you start pressuring them to do it, it pulls them away. And I just very much remembered that as a kid, using this no as the one power I had against my parents was to refuse to do something. And even if they forced me to do it, to go into it kicking and screaming was like a victory to me. So when Xander has said a few times, I don't want to go, or Zoe has said I don't want to go, my first reaction immediately was to get really mad. It just bothered me. What? We're a jiu-jitsu family. Everyone does jiu-jitsu. You know that. All men do jiu-jitsu. That's what I've told them. You can't be a man unless you do jiu-jitsu. Same thing. You can't be a woman unless you do jiu-jitsu. They actually think that for real.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny. But then I saw that that was my version of yelling at my kids from the man side. Like I'm too advanced in my jiu-jitsu to do that, but I've still made the mistake of getting mad at them if they don't want to do jiu-jitsu. So I've outsourced that to Kathy and let her handle it.
We need Kathy here.
Yeah, I'm like, Kathy, I don't want to do jiu-jitsu. You got to handle this. And she does something like offers Zoe ice cream and gets Xander a Beyblade or something. That's how I got him to do his dance competition. But the wrong thing to do would be to get mad at them and force them to do something they don't want to do. You have to figure out a way to get them to do it. Remember, Xander wouldn't do warm-up for a long time. We had to get through that. So, it's small victories. And these challenges of getting your child to do something they don't want to do is another microcosm of their entire lives. I do tell Xander all the time, we operate on discipline, not desire. I tell him that all the time. If I was operating on desire, we would have nothing. Because I don't want to go to work every day and spend 12 hours every day at work. I don't want to drive you to school. I don't want to drive you anywhere. Stay at home. I would just be laying on the ground in the sun somewhere.
Right.
Discipline, not desire. I know you don't want to do it, but you have to do it. You signed up. Mm-hmm. And then one thing we always say is, if you don't want to do jiu-jitsu, you have to go talk to coach. You have to go tell Coach Vanessa you don't want to do jiu-jitsu, or tell Coach Keith you don't want to do jiu-jitsu. Same thing with swimming. You have to tell Coach David you don't want to do it and why, and they'll usually do that. Mm-hmm. They'll usually do it rather than that. Mm-hmm. To go to someone they are a little scared of,
mm-hmm.
and explain.
I never thought about doing that.
I'm a punk. Keith, I'm a punk. I don't. So they don't know how to do that. Right. Like, oh, no problem. Just get your gi on, go walk up to Coach Keith, and explain to him why you don't want to do jiu-jitsu. Next thing you know, they're doing the warm-up. Mm-hmm. So that was Kathy's idea. I was just getting pissed.
So you think that it's interesting? So you said that both of you guys a little bit coerced your children into doing jiu-jitsu.
Oh, I coerced them to get their socks on in the morning. I have to coerce them to do everything I want them to do. They don't want to do it. Everything. Eating food. They don't want to do it sometimes. Because they have that is their psychological modicum of control. The only thing they can do in their lives to assert control is to say no to something. I think. Mm-hmm. So then you have to. We're smarter than them, right?
Yeah.
I think. So we have to turn that around on them.
So what have you found is the best way to motivate them to do jiu-jitsu? I mean, we're talking about coercing them. Is that what you found to be the best way? Like, does it ever switch to where they're now pushing you to do jiu-jitsu? Like, they're like, I want to go to jiu-jitsu.
Xander does that about Muay Thai. He really is excited about Muay Thai for some reason.
Okay.
He's excited also about no-gi. He loves to say he does no-gi. I don't know why. But today is no-gi and Muay Thai. I've been hearing about it all week. I'm doing no-gi. I think he likes to say it. I don't know what the deal is, but he likes no-gi and he likes Muay Thai. I think it has to do with the fact that it just has a cool name. I don't know what it is, but something about it he really digs. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he gets to do jiu-jitsu without a gi. It's not that.
So it's like something other than the activity itself.
Yeah, kids are... It could be that he loves to play dodgeball. I don't know what it is, but he there's certain things that he definitely likes and is proud of. And he also gets really happy when he makes us proud. He really likes it. So.
What about you? What have you found is the best way to motivate? Do you find that you have to motivate her, or how does she get self-motivation? Or?
It's difficult because she's going through that age right now. She's 11 going on 12, so everything's dramatic with her. Mm-hmm. And it's surrounded by her social network of friends, mm-hmm. especially at the gym, because that's where at the most. She doesn't have any friends at school. Mm-hmm. She hates going to school every day. But as soon as she gets home, we ask her, are you training today? Are you not training today? You know, what are you doing? You got homework? If she has a lot of homework, she can't train, obviously. But sometimes she'll be on the edge, yeah. And then I'll see her on the phone, yeah, Cece will be there, you know. Her best friends will be there. So I think it's more of a social thing that motivates her than anything these days. Mm-hmm. Then, obviously, if there's a competition coming up that she wants to compete in, she knows she has to train, so she's motivated for that reason. And I don't know, because I'm not in her head. I would, I don't know. I know what goes on through an 11-year-old's head when I was 11, but it's different.
I think the discipline over desire thing has gotten through to Xander because
that's a good one.
He didn't. I mean, that's a very advanced way to say it. But whenever he says like, "I don't want to go to school," I'm always like, "Oh, I know, man. School sucks. It's horrible, and you're gonna have to do it for 18 years." And I did it and I did it, and I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do anything. Like I said, I want to just lay on the ground. But we have to do stuff we don't want to do, and I could see him kind of figuring this out, that life actually has things that you have to do things you don't want to do. And that was like a revelation. And it is a revelation for a young mind.
Right.
Because they're just this little thing that would naturally think that you don't need to do something that you don't want to do. Because that's what being a child is, very free. It's like you're at a full... Xander and Zoe are almost living a life like they're at a luxury resort at all times. They're being fed, their clothes are clean, they're being dressed. They just stand there like this.
Right.
And we dress them. Like, who does that? Knights, kings? I mean, I put Xander's shirt on, it's everything, socks, shoes, tie his shoes, feed him luxury food. It's like, who are these people? So they would quickly, I think, figure out that they don't have to do things they don't want to do unless they're forced. But you can't just force them like with an iron fist. I mean, you have to use...
Do you have a fear of like the child not being as good as they could have been if you're not sort of like on them? And how do you deal with that? Like, do you have that, and how do you deal with that?
I mean,
Go ahead, you can answer.
Okay. I recognize through my training in jiu-jitsu that it is unequivocally a marathon, not a sprint. I also recognize, like I said before, that there are grown men and women that cannot do certain moves. So I have no illusions that it will be very hard with what I can see Xander, just biologically, I don't think it's possible for him to do certain techniques. So no, I have no fear of him not being as good as he could be unless he drops out altogether. As long as he maintains a connection with the school long term, then I believe he will be very good. He's very, very young, and he started very, very young. Right. It will be a grand experiment if we're able to achieve having Xander go through this whole thing. I mean, at some point, he's going to have hormones, and he's going to have girls. There's going to be girls. Hopefully, there'll still be real cars. He'll be into cars.
There are not going to be no real cars then. I think they're all going to be like automatic.
Hopefully, there's still real girls.
Actually, we don't even know about that. How many years?
Oh boy,
I don't know. It's getting dicey. But as soon as I recognized females, I was like, oh my! I almost quit. I was in very serious ice hockey, and girls almost pulled me out of it. Cars I was very into it. Started messing with that, and my goal was to try to keep him connected to the things that are important, which I believe are school, the good people, and sport, and especially this one, because you can't hide behind the team. I like that. I like jiu-jitsu for that reason. That's why I love it. What was the question?
So how do you? So you don't really. So you're.
Do I have? No, I don't think. Yeah. Do I have fear of my child not being good if I push him? I actually have the opposite. I feel like I am not equipped enough to understand how to properly teach a child how to do jiu-jitsu because this is my first go-around with this. I make so many mistakes in regards to parenting all the time. I made them this morning. We had a blowout at the house this morning, and I freaked out, and it was not good. I know that I make mistakes in that respect, so the best thing I could do is just kind of leave it alone. He's achieving what I want, and that's for him to be in the school.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Miss Dana? Do you have thoughts on it? Like, do you have a fear, like, if you were to get involved, maybe Zeta would have won the Pan Kids the year before instead of the year after, or anything like that?
I think they're in the back of my mind in the back of my mind, I'm always going to see what could I have done better as a parent. One, I train too, so I should know this stuff, right? that I could have maybe drilled with her more, get her to more training sessions with Coach Vanessa, or to the other Camp Springs or the other gyms. But when I reflect on things like that and what I could have done and attacking those kind of, I guess not fears, but that feeling of what could I have done better, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do that would have done better. We did what we could to get her to training. We got her motivated to even compete. We got her, enough funds together to get out there to compete. So we did all we could. Me and Josh did all we could to get her to the point where she can get to where she can on her own. So I feel like I always have to take a step back, because those are two different animals. Being the parent and supporting them and making sure they're at where they're at, and then for her to be on the mat competing at that particular point in time. That's everything that she's worked on and trained for is right there, or it's going to be executed right there. I don't know if that answers the question.
I noticed that a lot of the issues that parents bring up to the coaches is very often in relation to other children that are not their child. Usually along the lines of like X, Y, and Z is mean, beat up, got extra attention, cheated against my child, right? So then they feel that they have to get involved because they feel like sort of like the rules have failed their child. The system, they're putting the system on trial.
Yeah, can I take this one?
Yeah.
But when a parent makes a big deal of something, it blows it out of proportion, and it has a catastrophic effect on the kids' interactions, because I think kids are fully capable of letting it go. They don't even care.
They'll
like
forget
5
about
minutes
it
later, they're playing video games with each other. They're not really mad at each other, even if they hurt each other, because they're not really hurting each other. So when the parents get involved and put all these restrictions on the way that children are interacting, they don't understand that. And it messes up everything for the kids. The best way is to just say, I don't know, man. Kids are kids. You bit them. Shit. Sometimes people bite people. I don't know. And that's it. These kids are fighting each other. They're trying to learn. They're getting through life. It adds way too much. Way too much. How many times have you, in the adult program, has somebody come and said, this person wronged me in the room? Not many. And the reason why is because everybody realized real quick that you don't want that kind of heat.
No.
It's just not worth it. It's not worth it.
I've never thought of it like that. So I don't really know that it brings heat if you come to the coach about an issue.
It doesn't. The coach would react appropriately. It's so rare that the coach would be like, oh my God, let's address this. Let's have a meeting. And then you're in the meeting and you're like, do we really need to have a meeting over the fact that you ripped my arm in an arm lock?
And the legit.
It happens. Like, I get you're excited. You got somebody's arm. You want to rip it off. Maybe you got beat 3 matches before that and you finally got somebody. Or like I did something a year ago and you got me. I get kicked in the face every time I'm in there. And bust my lip. I'm like, it's almost funny to me at this point.
Yeah.
I would never. I'm in a combat situation. I get kicked in the mouth. I understand it's not legal, but I just view it as the cost of doing business. And I view my kid the same way. Now, if somebody pulled out a shank and stabbed me in the back, then we have a problem. But as long as it's within the bounds of reason, I think that it brings unnecessary heat on the children, and they don't know how to react to it. They're not advanced enough to understand a sudden restriction in the room. They're not capable of that.
Do you ever feel the desire or the want to be a coach, and how do you balance that against your desire?
Coach for my own kid?
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy for me. I couldn't coach
Okay.
because I would be the parent that yells the wrong instruction. Like in the heat of a moment, in that particular struggle, whatever's going in my head will come out my mouth wrong. So I just can't. I'm not a good coach. When Vanessa left it up to me and Mark to coach at Naga a couple weekends ago, I was like, go, pass the guard. It was very simple instructions. I felt bad because the parents that were right next to me cheering their kid on was probably looking at me like, she's a purple belt. She should know what she's doing. I do when I'm out there, but I can't convey that message from my brain out my mouth. It won't transform.
We have a lot, mentally, in respect to the way we treat this thing, a lot in common. And I'm glad because you're much more experienced parent than me. In all respects, you're older kids. Yeah. Do I want to coach my kid? Absolutely. Like, I do have a desire. I really hope someday I'll be on this side of the mat helping Xander win a jiu-jitsu match. It will be really important for me. Right. I'm really excited. But I tell him a lot of little things. I was raised like that, where my dad was like real macho, and my grandfather was the same. He used to tell me little things that now stick in my mind. So I do tell him a lot. Don't listen to anyone who doesn't have results in the thing that they're telling you about. And the fact is, I don't have results in being a kids coach. I don't know how to teach kids. I don't know what in the world their game plan is. Mm-hmm. In the same situation that you're saying, when you're asked to coach somebody and you don't know what their game plan is, it's really tough. Because then you're just yelling stuff out that they may not know how to do. Right. And that's what I would be doing. I have no clue really what Xander knows except some of his wrestling. Because that's what he focuses on a lot at the house, is his double leg, his single leg. And I feel confident that I could help him through that. But that's about it. I don't know what else. I don't know what the kid's game plan is. I've actually seen and witnessed more than I've seen my own kid doing things, other parents telling their kids to do things that I thought was nuts, which just caused me to leave the room. Because I'm like looking over like, this is so weird. I can't even be around this. So I leave. So maybe going back to why I don't watch my kid do jiu-jitsu is there's so many things happening in the room that I think it's crazy.
It's easier to just walk away.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with what's happening on the mats. It's everything to do with what's happening off the mat. Yeah. Oh, it's like I can't even be around this because I can't say something.
You're not the parent, right? Or you're not the coach. You're another parent, right?
I'm another parent,
exactly.
And I would create a weird dynamic, right. And I am also in the school, so I'm like, I got nothing. The most sensitive thing one of the most sensitive things that you can do to another human is say anything about their kids.
Yeah,
it's a real sensitive spot, and to say like, I think you're giving your kids bad advice could result in major problems. It's uncharted territory. Like if you see a parent in the mall parking lot disciplining their kids in a way you don't agree with, you don't walk up and say, unless they're like beating them or something. You don't walk up and say like, hey, just tone it down, buddy. It's a fist fight, right?
Yeah.
And the last thing we can have is a fist fight at the school over some silliness. So I've heard some things. In my head, I'm thinking, if your child could physically execute what you're suggesting they do, it would be all wrong.
Right. You don't even want them to actually do it yourself because it would be worse.
It would be worse.
Right.
Or it's like some crazy thing like, get out.
Yeah.
Sweep him. Like, to yell sweep him is so wild. Of course. Yes. That is good advice. To sweep him. But
win! Win!
Yeah.
Come on, man, win!
It's like yelling out, do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Tap him out!
Yeah.
All right.
Sweep him! Sweep him! You gotta sweep him. Wow. You gotta sweep him. I mean, that's...
Well, you guys have set me up for next week. I'm ready. I'm ready for the world. I cannot wait to coach like this. It's going to make my life way simpler. Like, get him!
Get him.
Get him!
You gotta win.
So, what advice would you give to parents who want their child to be good at jiu-jitsu, just based on what you've seen as an instructor and your own experience and as a parent? If you could just give them a short snippet of advice, what would you give? What would you tell? What would you say?
That the goal is long-term commitment rather than short-term success.
Okay.
That's it. That it would be far better if they were in jiu-jitsu for 12 years than if they won the pan once because they were and miserable doing it. Mm-hmm. So of course, anyone that wins the Pan Ams is going to go through states of miserableness. Mm-hmm. That's how you win the Pan Ams, is to go through misery, to teach your kids that it's discipline over desire. But also, a parent could unintentionally cause their child to not like it because of their actions rather than their own child's desires. So I would say to just try to teach your child those lessons, that it's about long-term commitment rather than any short-term win. That's the best I can say.
Yeah.
What about you?
And I'm not a brown belt in being a jiu-jitsu parent. Mm-hmm. I'm not. I'm probably a white belt at being a jiu-jitsu parent.
What advice would you give?
I would just say let the time on the mats mold their jiu-jitsu. Like you said, it's not. They're not going to get it in the first week. They're going to get it in the first year. Mm-hmm. So it is a long-term sport, and just keep supporting them on what they want to do in the jiu-jitsu journey, and just support them. Don't berate them. Don't berate them when they come out of a losing match. Just support them. That's all they really need at this point when they're little like that.